सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहैः। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। दिवि भूमौ तथाकाशे बहिरन्तश्च मे विभुः यो विभात्यवभासात्मा तस्मै सर्वात्मने नमः। Devarchana Vidhanam, the manner of worshipping. And in this chapter, before we enter into this chapter, I just would like to share a feeling that I had about when I was first introduced about this Shiva Manasa Puja. And it's a very beautiful song written by Shankaracharya, which says that Ratnaikalpitamasanam, etc. It goes on like that. Lovely music and a beautiful song. Everything is beautiful. But then when I was going through that, trying to understand that, then what I found was that it says that you imagine about the Ratnai Kalpitamasanam, etc., Shiva sitting there, and then all these flowers and the Argyam, Padyam, and all those things that you offer to Shiva. When he says that do all those things, then I realized that it looked very simple. In fact, the way that he said, Shiva Manasa Puja, you do that, that means you don't have to do anything outside. The whole paraphernalia, organizing the whole deity, this, that, and then all the puja samagri, and the whole methodology of puja, singing about all those mantras, all those things. You don't really have to do all those things. You can do everything in this mind. The mind itself that you can imagine about the flowers that you are offering, about the mantras that you are saying, about the arghya, padya, all those procedures that you are doing. You don't have to do anything outside. You do it inside. It looks very simple. It looks like a shortcut. But then I realized when I was really contemplating on that, it's so difficult. It's not even for 1 second that mind continues to be with that idea of puja that we are doing. It wanders around. It just does not stay there. In fact, we are so thankful that we have all this method puja that is there, which will bind you at least 70-80% of the time. If it does, it's really very good that you are in the mood of worship, in the thinking of God, mind filled with the God and the activities of the God that we have created. This is something which is extraordinary. Manasa Puja is something which is absolutely difficult for an ordinary person. Therefore, that as a compromise to that we do all these activities that are there in the form of puja vidhana, everything that is there outside. And people take it with so much of sincerity, shraddha in that every small little detail, and then they follow it. Like for example, washing this thing and putting the next one, and organizing various things, and all those things are systematically done when you really get involved in that puja. In fact, these are all very beautiful techniques that our sages have introduced to see that our life is filled with that feeling. We, having been born in this particular culture, I think we should take advantage of all these situations that are there as keenly as possible, that we participate in that and try to remember, try to feel the presence of the God in that particular deity, in that form that is there. And actually, recent puja has given me such a great insight into that. We invoke the prana in that, life in that. Until that time, it was like a stone, and then we invoke the prana. Then it becomes like a living being. In fact, when you look at that minus this prana, what is our body? Is it not something like a stone? It is even frailer than the stone itself. At least stone survives for some time, but this body will not survive for few days. 24 hours we have to dispose it of. So that is the situation it is, and then we invoke prana into that. And once we invoke prana into that, it is like a living being. And the living being means basically that it has all those things that are necessary for food, and then uh, bath, and after that rest and play nice wonderful music so that the rest will be comfortable. All those things ritualistically we follow it. Actually, when you do that sankalpa and do all kinds of things, then you start really living the presence of that being amongst you. And afterwards, then we do the divinity, invoke the divinity in that. That means to say the godhood gets into that. And then, therefore, that particular image in the temple becomes like a god. The Pujari explained so very beautifully. He said that it was a stone 3 days back, and today it has become a deity, and we worship it. What an extraordinary, wonderful transformation that has taken place. And at that time, when I was doing that idea temple and then consecrating that, then at that time I was feeling that idea that outside we create the temple, outside we can bring a stone and cut it into the image and then do all kinds of things and establish inside the temple that we do it. But here itself that we have a temple here within us. Can we convert this whole body into a temple? This is a very important idea, and that converting this temple is not by any other means. It is by our own thinking, our own mind, our own feeling that we see that, yes, I'm dealing with this body, not like a physical body, but this is something like a temple of God. Then what happens is that what is staying inside is supposed to be the deity, is supposed to be the divinity that is there. And then what happens is that whatever that I was offering to the temple, to the god in the temple outside, and I offer it to inside. This is what is Shiva Manasa Puja that Shankaracharya was thinking of it. Short of that people will go to the worship of the deities that are there in the temple. And that also we can see that that kind of a feeling of the godliness is in any of the temples, any of the deities that are there. But what happens with us is that there are certain temples where we feel more effectively. In other temples, we don't feel that much. So therefore, we visit some of those temples where we say that a greater prana is there, higher prana is there in that particular temple, or higher spiritual feeling that is there, because many people have gone and did that kind of a worship, puja. Therefore, it gets established in that kind of a thing. So this whole idea is to see that how we can convert the whole world is filled with the divinity. Then the Rishi says, as his experience, that Ishavasyamidam sarvam yat kinchi jagatyam jagat. Everything is nothing but divinity. The same thing, another Upanishad which says, Pranasyedam vashet sarvam tritive yat pratishtitam. You are the prana, you are the divinity that is there everywhere. That kind of feeling we get. Here also, that the manner of worship the deity, worshipping the deity, in this particular chapter, Vasistha brings about this concept very beautifully, and that's what let us try to look into it. Vasistha Vacha Abhasamatrame Vedam Ityam Sampratibhasate Ayanam Aham Ityantah Asateva Sharirakam. The world is only the mere appearance that now shines in the manner. The body which feels within and the one with the name is only non-existence. The body, Sharirakam, is asat, it does not exist. I am, that means to say it comes and goes, it's short-lived. And Sukhatalpagato yena swapne dehena diktatat Paribhramasi, he Rama, Sadehaha, Tekva, Samstitaha. O Rama, resting in the comfortable bed, you wander about the various directions of space with the dream body. And where is this body of yours situated? Yeah, it's a very beautiful example that he says that you are lying down on the bed. Supposed to be this body is lying down on the bed. And then you enter into the sleep, and then you have another dream body that's separate from this. And then that dream body that you are going everywhere. And that dream body is what you are. So when you are identified with that dream body, what happened to this body? Where was it? Where was it existing? Sukatalpagato yena swapnadehena vaktatan diktatan paribhramasi te rama sadeha te vacha samsitaha. Where are you situated? Are you situated in this body? Are you situated in that body? Very clearly we are situated in that body. We are not here in this body. That means basically this is something which temporarily we use it, as much as that we use very temporarily, that particular body in the dream state. Jagaranam manorajye yena swarga purantaram paribhramase merum va sadehaha tekva samsitaha. Even in this waking state, in the kingdom of imagination, the kingdom of castle building in the air, you wonder about inside the heavenly city or in the Meru mountain, where is the body you are situated? This is another very deep observation about our mind. How much that we are just building the castles and then going around. Even in this body when we are there, we may be driving the vehicle, but then we may not be there. The consciousness will not be there. It is somewhere wandering around. Hardly we recognize that we are there. But it is going around doing all kinds of activity. At that point of time, what happened to this? That's what he says. Sadehaha te kwasamsthitaha. Where does it exist? Dirgha sapnam imam vidhihi dirgham va chitta vibhramam dirgham vapi manorajyam samsaram raghunandana. Hey Rama, understand this course of worldly existence as a very long dream and long delusion of the mind and long lasting kingdoms of the castles in the air. So this whole thing is nothing but a long dream, a dream for several years that we are going through. And the moment that even for a short period of time that we have the dream, we get easily identified with the object there in the dream world. The same way, if it in a short dream that we can identify with the dream object that is there in the dream, such a long dream that we have in this world, in this body, going through all these stages of life, somewhere it was there, and from somewhere it has moved somewhere, and so many things that happened, pleasant, unpleasant, so many experiences we go through. When you look back, all those experiences are just left behind, and then you are continuously moving, like the way a river which is left behind all the beautiful pilgrim centers like Badrinath, Kedarnath, and came down all the way the Rishikesh, Hardwar, and then further down it came to Ganga and the Varanasi, and then passes that. All those things are left behind, and then we move ahead. A river which is known for all these great pilgrim centers, we revere that river as something which is sacred. And a river which does not go through any of those things, we don't even recollect that river, small river. Or in other words, that people try to create all those pilgrim centers around by the side of the river to see that not only that the people visit those places but and worship the god divinity, but at the same time that they take bath in that river, and then that particular divinity is carried in that river, that we have a sacred feeling about all these rivers in this country, though they are, because that they are flowing through all these sacred rivers, sacred places, pilgrim centers. The same way that this body, and you are going through this, while this body, you are going through this particular journey. In this journey, that there were several places, pilgrim centers that were there, but at the same time there are several places which are wretched, which are bad. And you had horrible experiences. Leave them behind. Don't carry them. They're all something which is coming and going. But then good things that you remember, the pilgrim centers that you remember, so that the journey becomes like a pilgrimage. So dirgha swapna ivam vidhihi dirgham va chitta vibhramam dirgham vapi manorajyam samsaram raghunandana param paurushamasthaya balam pragyam cha yuktataha nabhim samsara chakrasya chittameva nirodhayet. Resorting to the best of the human effort, strength and intelligence, restraint, only the mind which is in the nave of the wheel of worldly existence by suitable means. So this, with all the best of the human efforts, strength, intelligence, and all that discipline of the mind, which is the knife of the, which is the center, the core of the whole of the worldly existence by suitable means. So we are that core, we are that center, we are that axle over which this whole existence has been going round and round and round. And that particular center thing is, the axle is something which does not move, even though all other things move. And that holds the key of the whole movement of the world outside. Prajnasau saujanyayuktena shastra samvalitena cha paurushena cha yat prapyam natat kvachit labhyate, which is that which is not obtained by human effort, accomplished by intelligence and goodness, and associated by, guided by the scriptures, is not acquired anywhere. So you cannot obtain this by the human effort, the intelligence or the goodness and all those things, and associated with or guided by the scriptures. It is not acquired anywhere. Scriptures only talk about it, but not actually about that. This prajna that is there is something which is beyond all these descriptions. Why he said like that? Because what you can describe is about the world outside. What you can put in the words is about the world that is there outside. Nothing can be put about the consciousness that is there existing, the Atman that is there existing at the center. Therefore, prajna saujanya yuktena, and only thing that you can abstain, saujanya yuktena shastra samvalitena cha na paurushena yat praptam na tat kvachit labhyate. It's only through this awareness, and it's only through that being with that, because it itself is the being, and then only that we can really experience that particular state. Chitta yaksha dridakrantam na shastrani cha bandhavaha shaknuvanti paritratum guravo na cha manavaha. Neither the scriptures chitta yaksha drishta klantam na shastrani cha, nor the scriptures, nor the kinsmen nabandhavaha shaknuvanti paritratum. Even the spiritual perceptors are not able to save the man. Even they cannot help the man who has been seized by taking possession of the ghost of the mind. Chitta yaksha dridakrantam. This is a very beautiful expression. And what happens is that the mind is yaksha. Yaksha is something where it is described as something which can, you ask and then it is fulfilled. It's something which can fulfill, like the way that we have that what's called as the genie of the lamp that is there, and you ask anything, the genie provides that. But in the process, what happens is that you get caught up with that genie in this life. So this is what chitta is, like the genie, that yes, it makes you to feel that you have achieved with the help of chitta, mind. Intellect is something which can achieve that, which can really get you all that kind of thing. This world, yes, you can see that the amount of transformation that has taken place in the world outside, amount of growth, amount of development that has taken place, it's all because of this intellect, because of chitta. So it is like a yaksha, it is like a wish fulfiller. And dridha krantam, and it's holding on to you. You're so convinced about it. It's very easy to get caught up in this particular mind and its capacities and its abilities to see that we can achieve that. But what is one thing that we need to understand is that all these things that chitta will be able to manage is about the world outside. You see that any gain, any development that has taken place, any attraction that has done is all about the world outside. And we managed all this kind of thing with the help of chitta yaksha dridakrantam. That is what is basically holding on. And Guravo Nacha Manavam. So, such a thing, neither the scriptures nor the Bandhavaha, Nachasya Shastrani, na Bandhavaha, Shaknuvanti. That means they are capable of saving the man. Paritratum. Guravo Nacha Manavam. So, taken possession of the man who has been seized by the. So, that means mm, the Shastras also cannot help you. Why does it say that? Because Shastras are the ones which are trying to give us ideas about the spirituality, about the divinity, about the Atma, and this whole journey that we are making is with the help of Shastras. Even reading this book, what we are talking about in the Yoga Vasistha, is supposed to be something which really helps us that journey. But he says even this cannot give you. Why does he say that this cannot give you? The simple idea is that if you do not have the proper set of mind, then the Shastra also becomes like an embellishment. It does not allow you to go inside, but it remains as something which you have shouldered on, you have put it on your shoulder, and you have put it as your ornament. That I know these things, I have read all these things, and that's what actually you see that in one of the Upanishads. Narada goes to Sanat Kumara, says that I have read all these Shastras, I memorized, I know by heart. Rugadhyay में, Samamadhyay में, Kshatra Vidya Madhyay में, Akshatra Vidya Madhyay में, all these things I have read. But then what happened? Shochami. That means all these things are there, but then it did not take away my deep inner agony that is I'm suffering from. In fact, on the other hand, somebody who does not know all these things, there is one possibility that he might think that yes, when I read these things, when I go into that, then I can get the benefit of it. Like the way that in my lifetime I never read Bhagavad Gita, immediately somebody will suggest you saying that, "Arey, you did not read Bhagavad Gita, it's an extraordinary, wonderful text. It has a solution for everything in the life. So please follow the Bhagavad Gita, please read Bhagavad Gita at least every day, read few shlokas." Like that Viveka Chudamani, there are several umpteen number of texts that are there which can help you to see that we understand this thing. So Shastras people suggest it. But then somebody who has read all those things and still miserable, what happened? It means basically the Shastras which are supposed to give you a transformation within you has not happened. That means to say they have not allowed you to turn inwards. They only help you to see that you have all these Shastras at the external level. So this is unfortunate thing about these Shastras, that they are originally meant for taking you towards the inner research, inner development and inner inquiry. But then because of the language and because of the structure and all those things, that you get enamored so much, at the end of it you say that I know it. And that is what Shastra says. The moment that you say, I know it, you don't know it. That means you blocked your journey forward. So therefore, the posture that we take it, yes, I should also make this journey. All these texts that are there, Shastras that are there, and whatever that is there, Bandhavaha, Shastra, all those things that we relation, is to see that I proceed inwards. They should help me to go inwards. They should try to, that's why it is very beautifully said that by listening to a wonderful talk, if you feel that you know it, then I have done a disservice to you. But by listening to a wonderful talk, if you feel that you should also know it, then that's the right kind of a service that we have done it. That means to say it is somebody's journey that he has to make. It's nobody else can make the journey for you. That's why we always say that in the Gayatri Mantra, Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. That means to say, make my intellect, make my buddhi, make my whole idea inside awakened, so that that will help me to realize the ultimate truth. So Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat, that is what we say. So it is I who is supposed to do that. It's I who has to realize that. So that prachodana I need to get from the world outside. So, chitta yaksha dhrudakrantam na shastrani cha na bandhava shaknuvanti paratranam guravo na cha manavam. It does not help man to, all these things will not help to save the man who has been seized by the ghost of the mind. Samshanta chitta vetalam guru shastrartha bandhavaha shaknuvanti samudhartum swapna pankat mrugam yatha. The scriptural preceptor, that is Guru Shastrartha Bandhavaha, the spiritual preceptor, the Guru, and the substance of the scriptures that are there, Shastra, and the kinsmen are able to lift you up, Bandhavaha. They all help you to lift you up, save the person whose mind has been anguished and stilled, just as a deer could be saved from very little mire. So, Shaknuvanti Samudhartum Swapna Pankat Mrugam Yatha. So, Salpa Pankat Mrugam Yatha. The Mruga, that is the analogy that he uses, is that the deer which is caught up in the dirt, in the mud, that is quicksand, what they call it as quicksand. That means to say in the mud where it is going on sinking. And what happens is the moment that the deer goes into the mud and gets sinking, immediately it is caught up in fear. And because of the fear, the deer tries to make a lot of agitation. And the more and more that the deer makes an agitation, the more that the possibility of the deer to go deeper and deeper sinking. Whereas if the deer is still, then there is possibility of coming out. But then if you try to help the deer to come out, bring it out, the very fact that you are trying to reach the deer to help him, the deer feels that you are trying to harm him, so therefore he tries to further struggle. And in the very struggle itself is trying to bring the deer into a deeper kind of situation. That's what he says, that mrugam yatha, like the way, what is that which makes like that? It is our own agitation, and agitation in the mind. And that's what is chitta. It's a very beautiful idea. Sashanta chitta vetalam. That means to say the chitta which is caught up in this, and it has got, the idea is the goblin mind has been extinguished or stilled. When the mind is stilled, this mind which is really having all that which is from the past, from the present, and about the future, all those things which is making this chitta, unless until you make this chitta peaceful, sashantam, samshanta, that means to say it is quietened chitta. And that only, if you can make that your chitta peaceful, quiet, is not caught by the world outside, what is that chitta? What is that which makes the chitta engaged, chitta disturbed? It is your own desires, your own wanting to get. These are the things which really make the chitta, make the mind agitated, make the mind caught up in this particular thing. The fear and the idea of that, many times people come and say that also, that how long should I continue to do it? Time is passing away, and I already started very late, and then only I have a few years in front of me. Therefore, I'm in a hurry to get to that particular state. The very idea that you are in a hurry to get to that state is something which is really disturbing your mind, which is creating chitta ashanti. So, sashanta chitta vetalam, that means to say, if this mind which is supposed to be monkey mind, which call it, and this becomes shanta, peaceful, then Guru Shastrartha Bandhavan. What's the idea? That would they not help otherwise? They want your mind to be quiet? It's not like that. In fact, when your mind is agitated, when your mind is in a hurry, when your mind is disturbed at that point of time, you will not be able to see whatever the message that Guru gives, and whatever the message that the Shastras are giving us, and even the Bandhavas, the friends that who are giving. All that you will not understand it. You are always there with that, but in spite of it, you will not be able to realize that because that your mind is hurried. A sadhaka comes hurriedly to rushing to a saint who is sitting under a tree and says that, look, I don't have time to sit down and meditate like you do all those kind of things. I need to really quickly get into the God. So just give me a small little simple trick. And then the saint said that yes, you go to a person and who is having features like this, and then sitting under a tree like this, and then he's having this, various ideas that he gives and says that go in search of him, and he is supposed to be the one that he helped me like that, and then he can really help you. Immediately that person rushed to find out that person in various cities, various places, various towns, where that kind of a tree, the trees are there, similar kind of thing, but then nobody is sitting under that. And goes round and round asking people, inquiring about various things, and then they also were not able to help. They were very sincere, and they see that how seriously that he is caught up in that desire. So therefore they tried to help him. Yes, everybody wants to help. So with all those things that he rushed and rushed and rushed, various places, spent about 20 years. And at the end of 20 years, somebody suggested to go to a particular place. And then finally, after 20 years, he landed a place where the saint is sitting under a tree. And then after coming there, immediately it did not occur to him because 20 years later that he has come. But after that, the moment he saw that, Arey, you are the same person who asked me to go around and find out that. He said, yes. And now after coming here, I realized that this is the same village I started and they are the same person. And then you made me to go round and round. Why did you not tell me? Then he said that, look, you are in such a deep anxiety in your mind that you are not even listening to what I am saying. You are not seeing around what I am saying. You are so lost in that, you are lost in running just to go away and then try to find out what it is. So the process has taken you around. But then he said, but then that's okay, the process has taken me around. But you wasted my 20 years of time. I went around the whole place just to find you. Then the saint says that, look, you are looking at 20 years of time that you wasted going around. But just look at me, that I have nothing to do. But in spite of it, because of you, with the hope that one day or the other you will come back, I'm sitting here for 20 years under the same tree, in the same situation. Is it not something really bad on my part? You made me to do that. Why did you not just look around that I was here itself? So we went round. He went round and round and round because that his chitta was in a vikshepa sthiti. Shanta sthiti is not there. It is chitta like a vetala it takes. This vetalam is something which is very beautiful idea because the story that we have and the legendary idea is that this vetala is a ghost. Let's take it as a simple ghost. And this ghost is sitting under a tree, and then every time that he has to bring that ghost, and then he brings it, and then when he brought that, the dead body of that particular, in which that the ghost is supposed to be there, on the way that he tells a story, and then he says to the king, my dear king, if you know the solution for this story, answer for this question in the story, then you have to tell it out. And if you don't know that, it's all right, you can leave it. But once you know it, you have to tell. If you don't tell, then your head will break for 1,000 pieces. So every time that Vetala tells a story, and at the end of it, he asks a question, and then the king knows the answer, therefore he speaks it out. But the condition is whenever he breaks the silence, the king breaks the silence, then the ghost will go back onto the tree. So this is like a children's story that we always used to have when we were growing up. Not only that the story has the simple idea of that the ghost again and again comes back and then goes back onto the tree and he brings. There are few things that basically conveys is that at that time, that how the king was so persistent in trying to bring that the the goes down. But at the same time, there's one more thing in the honesty of the king. That means he knows it, he gives an answer. Whatever may be the result, I can give an answer. This is the kind of a beautiful idea that is there. But then as we grow up from that, when we go into the stories also give extraordinary, wonderful spiritual message behind it to see that life is nothing but going round and round and round in circles. And that's what happens with us. Sashantam, samshanta chittavetalam, guru shastrartha bandhavaha, shaknuvanti samudhartum, sankalpa pankat, mrugam yatha. Like the way that the deer gets caught up in the quagmire. If it's still, then the deer will not sink. At that time, anybody can put a rope around the deer and then slowly, steadily pull the deer outside that. After all, what happens is that if you put a little more energy than what the weight with which that deer sinks, then the deer can come out of it. That's a very beautiful idea that he has given, that you don't be in a hurry, don't be in an agitated state, but then you see that you have to have a knack to come out of it. There are always people there to help, and there are always that the message that is there, but you will not be able to see the message, you will not take the help of the people unless until that you have the peaceful state of mind within you. Atraimam aparam drishtim mahamoha vinashinim shrunuya kathita purvam mahyam ardhendu maulina. So, in this matter, here another view, the knowledge destructive of great delusion, which was formerly narrated by to me by Lord Shiva. So Vasistha says to Rama that now I am telling you the story, whatever that Shiva told me. So in a matter here, another view, that means to say another knowledge, destruction of great delusion. This whole world is nothing but a delusion in the mind that we are holding on to that, which is formerly narrated to me by Lord Shiva, the great God who has the crescent moon on the head. So this is what Ardhendu Maulinaha. So why he said this Maulinaha, I mean Shiva, with the adjective of that moon on his crescent, on his tuft. The idea is that the moon is something which is waxing and waning. Moon is something which goes down and goes up. The samsara is also like that, which goes up and down. And that's what is on the head of Shiva. We are caught up in that samsara. There's another important idea about that moon, is that a moon, that's what Indu, Ardhendu, that is half moon or the crescent moon. Moon is also is the expression of our mind. So that is why we see that, mental problems are supposed to be lunatism, and then lunar means actually moon. It seemed to be that there is deep connection between our mental activity and the nearness and the fartherness of the moon and the influence of the moon on us. So probably that's what they found out. Ancient times, so even before this modern medicine started, the idea of that mental sickness is supposed to be connected with the moon, mind agitations are connected with the moon, or going up and down is connected with the crescent moon, is something which is envisaged by our sages. Kadachit Jahnavi Tire Stitoham Pujayan Shivam Tatha Shravana Bahulasyaashtame Dine, and Apashyam Kanane Tejaha Chandra Bimba Ganopamam Yavat Pashyami Te Pashyamitam Deham Prapyam Chandra Kalatharah Gauri Kararpitakaro Nandi Protshari Tagraga. Once upon a time, I lived on the banks of, this is what is Shiva giving the idea. I lived on the banks of the river Jannavi, Ganga, worshipping Lord Shiva, that's what. Then on the 8th day of the dark side of the moon, and this is what is Shravana Masa. The month is Shravana Masa. I saw in the forest a luster sincere, similar in appearance to the multitude of moon discs. As soon as I saw that, Lord Shiva, who wears the crescent on the moon, arrived at the place with his hand joined at the hand in the concert. Gauri and marching ahead, led forward by attendant Nandi. Nandi was there and Shiva, Parvati, they were there together hand in hand. And then the moon that was shining, the half moon that was shining, and I could see that this is a nice, wonderful vision that Vasistha had about Shiva who is there. Now, many times, many people, when they do sit for meditation, they have emotional association with the gods and goddesses, with the forms of gods and forms of goddesses. Not only that, and their emotional connections, they have very beautiful association with them. And that association, that kind of thing brings about this an experience, as an experiential kind of thing about the gods and goddesses. So it is basically essential in this culture that we not only have these various forms of God, but to see that we worship them from our heart. So the heart feels the presence of the divinity that's there existing. When the moment that you go with the intellect does not have all these gods and goddesses, all these images, all these ideas are not their intellect. They do not belong to intellect. They all belong to the heart. And that heart is something which you transcend the intellect and then reach that state. So therefore, all this concept of gods and goddesses that we have, it is beyond the level of intellect, but as something which is an expression of our own inner purity that is there manifests in that form. Ramakrishna used to see Divine Mother. Sharda Devi used to have the vision of Kali, and similarly several people had the vision. Mirabai had the vision of. Not only that, various poets, various singers, that they have sung in such a way that they could see the vision of these various forms and of gods, all those things that are there. The same way, Vasistha also had this vision where he saw Shiva and Parvati, and in the month of Shravana Masa, the moon that was there, and Pujante Mam Vacheti. So, Artham Pushpam Tatha Padyam Abhyupetyapidam Arpitam Maya Namaskaraihi Tatha Stotraihi Devi Yuta Shivorchitaha Pujante Mam Uvachetam Atishitala Gira. So now having approached that Shiva and with a respectful offering, these are the procedures that we follow when you go to the deity, or it is when somebody who has come respectful, like the way that we have these sadhus, saintly persons who come to our place, we offer them the water to wash the feet and water to wash the hands and all that. So this is what is called as Arghya, Padya, and then give them water, and then Pushpam, we give the flowers, and then we also try to put them the marks of the piety on their feet and on their forehead, and that's what is the kumkum and also the haldi. And Abhyupet Arpitam Maya. So all these things by offering this water and flowers and all those things by me, and the god Shiva accompanied by the goddess Gauri was worshipped by me through respectful salutations. Namaskaraihi tatha stotraihi. Stotra is the praise of the Lord, the variety, the various aspects of the Lord, infinitive aspects of the Lord. This stotra is also very interesting thing about that is that there in the stotra itself we say that, look, you are somebody that you cannot be described by any words. But then I will not be satisfied without describing in forms of words. So therefore that I say few words about you, but it does not mean you are limited. You are unlimited. You are much beyond that. But for my perception, if you just come into this particular aspect of it, that will be really wonderful. That's your ability to do it. So therefore, namaskaraihi tatha stotraihi. The stotra is very important. Devi uta shivochitaha. So Devi yuta, that means to say along with the Devi and then Shiva, architaha. That means to say he worshipped the Shiva. Pujayante mam uvacha idam atishitalatha gira. As the end of the worship, the Lord himself told me any beautiful, cool, pleasing words that he said. And kaschit tapasye निर्विघ्नं किं प्राप्तवानसि इत्युक्तेन मया प्रोक्तं त्वदनुस्मरणे सतिः कुतो विघ्नः न दुष्प्राप्यं भुवि किञ्चन विद्यते अपवर्गपुरद्वारं त्वदनुस्मरणं विभो. I hope that all these practices that you have done, all this worship, all these religious activities that you have done, austerities that you have done, is free from all kinds of hurdles, impediments, and have you obtained what you fit to be obtained? Did you get that? And thus addressed. So Shiva, when he asked that along with Parvati, it's a very wonderful kind of a friendly inquiry that Shiva is an elderly a person who could really give you boons, and such a person inquired about that. I spoke as follows: Ityuktena maya proktam. Having been heard about this, then I said this way that what is the fit to be obtained? Tanusmaranena satihi. That means what is there to when there is your remembrance that is there, from where could there be impediments? Kuto vignaha. Where are the vignas that are there? Then there is nothing whatsoever hard to get in this world. So once vigna is not there, that means to say there is no hurdles in the path of Jan. Kuto vignaha naduspapyam bhuvikinchana vidyate. There is nothing that you cannot get it. There is nothing dushprapyam, difficult to get it. It's like a cakewalk. When your grace is there, when your presence is there, then everything becomes like a cakewalk. Kuto vigraha nadushprapyam bhuvikinchana vidyate apavarga puradwaram tvadanusmaranam vibho. So remembering you in this passage of the city of fulfillment, the final beatitude. So this is what the high ultimate, the very goal itself is the way that I worship you. It's a very beautiful expression that he gives us. The idea is that worshipping for the sake of something, for getting something, then worship becomes secondary. God and God's worship becomes secondary when you have that, your demand list with that, and you get all those things and you do not get it, then he says that yes, I can fulfill you if you still have it. It means to basically my worship and my God, my worship to the God has been degraded by me, by the object that I am looking for. Whereas the moment that those two things are not there, apavarga puradwaram tadan smaranam vibho, just very thinking of you itself is something which has removed all that kind of thing, and then our worship becomes real sincere worship. Kim tu pruchhami devesham devesha kinchit sandeha nirnayam sarvapapa kshayakaram sarvakalyana vardhanam devarchana vidhanam tat kidrusham bhavati prabho. O Lord, he asks, Vasistha asks Shiva, O Lord, the divine ones, yet I ask you something. In the nature of the removal of settlement of the doubts, Lord, of what nature of the sacred percept relating to the worship of the deity, which causes the destruction of all the sins and increases all good or happiness. So that there is this also very similar to earlier that we have seen. Prahlada saying that kinchit dolaitam manaha, my mind is wandering. He says there, Narayana says that you have to really be quieten your mind. You need to conquer your mind, that I cannot help you. Similarly, here also that Vasistha says that my mind should be freed from all the negativities and it's just only positive. It just only vibrates with the positivity and the worship of what kind of a deity which can help me to go in that particular place. So what deity or what God is going to help me? Which God do I follow? Which form of the procedure that I should follow in the form of puja? Because every puja that we do, every worship that we do, there is always what is called as the phalashruti. That means what is that you are going to get it. This is something which is common in the way, and not only in our thinking, and the way that various other practices which have come from the ancient times, that they do so many things, and at the end of it they say the phalashruti. That means by doing this you will get good sleep, or you will get a childbirth, or you will get something like that. That means it has a capacity to attract that kind of requirement of yours. So they always people go with that kind of phalashruti. So therefore, that he says that kidrusham bhavato vibhu kim tu pruchhamide. By I asked about the nature of the removal of the doubts. What is that which removal of the doubt? What's the nature of the sacred precept relating to the which God is going to give me this kind of an approach towards that, where removes all my disturbances, agitations, and make me really internally peaceful. And then, what is that extraordinary God? That means all the other, this concept is there that lower gods for the sake of that lower gains that you get, and then higher gods for the higher gains that we have. Therefore, that we have hierarchy of gods. Hierarchy of gods depending upon our needs and requirements and our demands and our aspirations about that. Whether God gives or not, that's a different issue, but more important thing is that you wholeheartedly go behind that, thinking that it is all because of the divinity that what you get. So when he says that this way, what are the higher gods that is there? The great God, the Shiva replies. So this reply that Shiva gives is very, very important. And then he says, Atmaiva Paramo Devaha. The highest of the devatas that is there is the Atma itself. That means to say the Atman that is there, the self that is within us, the consciousness that is there pure within us, is the highest of the devatas, highest of the gods. Maheshwara Uvacha, Shiva says, Nadevaha Pundarikaksho, Nachadevaha Trilocanaha, Nachadevo Deharupihi, Nadevaha Chittarupathaka. Akrutrimam Anashantam Devanam Deva Uchate. Nadevam Pundarikaksho. The Pundarikaksha is the lotus side of the Lord Vishnu. Vishnu is not the deity. And Nachadevam Trilochanaha. The Shiva himself is saying that Shiva is not the ultimate God. He is not the God, ultimate deity. Deity is not incarnate in this body. Nadevo Deharupihi. He cannot exist in the case of this body, Deharupihi, nor in the deity of the form of the mind. Nahi Devam Chittarupathaka, not in the form of the mind. So, Akrutrimam Anadyantam Devanam Devavuchyate. This is the beautiful way that he expresses it. The splendor which is not artificial. Akrutrimam. That means there is no artificiality in any of it, which is without beginning. Anadi Antam. There is no beginning or end to it. And Devanam Devavuchyate. And he is the God of the gods. Now, what is that? The idea is that the God himself becomes the human being or the whole creation. God becomes the creation because that he gives up the totality, totalness, and then becomes something which is limited. The limitedness he brings on himself to see that the creation takes place, interaction takes place, interplay takes place. So even if he comes in the form of Shiva, in the form of Rama, or in the form of Vishnu, that means basically that he has to come by limiting himself to one thing. So Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, what we have, this concept of Trimurti, are the way that we have the Brahma is the one from whose Shakti manifests in the form of creation. Vishnu is the Shakti by which that the sustenance takes place. And then Shiva The Trinetra is the way that the dissolution takes place. So this is a cycle that goes on. So all these three forces are also within a cycle. And then what is born has to live for a while because that is born and then dies. How short, how long that he lives, or what is the cause for death and all those things is something which is already predestined. And then birth takes place, where you take birth, what way that form that you take birth. It's all depends upon various other factors that is there. Looks like that all these three things are Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. These are the three forces which are happening, which are supposed to be the most fundamental forces in the creation. So the most fundamental force of the creation is Pundarikaksha and then Trilochana and also the Brahman that is there. All these three things are there. Nacha Devaha Pundarikaksho. This Deva that you are talking about is beyond this, all these three forces. Because as long as within these three forces, that they means they have coming and going kind of a quality. It's not, that means to say there's motion that is there. It's a part of the creation. Nachadevam chittarupadruka. Nadaivo deharupihi. So he does not limit himself to this body. Not only the body that he limits himself into one body, but also Nachadevaha chittarupadruka. Chittarupadruka. That means to say it is not bound by any of your imaginations in your mind. Even that's also not there. Which is without beginning and end is called as the deity. Not in the form of mind. You cannot create any form of that in the mind because any form that you need to create in the mind is something which is limiting. That means the form is there. Outside the form, that's also there. Now, therefore, that Vishnu, it's not even Vishnu, not Brahma, not Shiva, but the Deva, the deity, the God, is something which is beyond, which does not have birth and death and all those things. Nadevo deharupo hi nadevam chittarupadrika akrutrimam anadyantam adyanta not being there, then devanam deva uchate. Devanam deva uchate. Beginning and is called as the deity. Devam deva uchate. Ajnata devatatvanam akaradhyarchanam kritam yojanadhyanta shaktasya kroshadva parikalpate. For those who have not known the essential nature of this deity, the worship of forms and the like has been prescribed. To one who is incapable of traveling a distance of yojana, a distance of 1 yojana is given a krosha. The yojana and krosha is the measure of a distance, large distance and small distance. So as an excuse for people who are not able to withstand that highest degree of looking at this Brahma, Deva, which is beyond the Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, and that is there, somebody who is not capable of looking at that level for them, these other deities and then how the worship has to be done, all these prescriptions have come. So, Ajnata Devatattvanam Akarascharchanam Kritam. Akara is something which is created because that Ajnata, Ajnataha Devatatvanam. The God's properties, God's nature is something that you do not know it. See, it's only the words. Even when we say that everything is nothing but God, are we really feeling it? Is it something which is coming from our own experience from the heart? When the Rishi says Isavasyamidam Sarvam, it is coming from his experience. But when we say that, it's not coming from our experience, it comes from our own ignorance, but ignorance of the ignorance that you do not even know that. Just because that somebody, some book, some place, the knowledge is given. So we assume that we also know it. And that's what is the damage that is done. So as a result of it, what happens is that Ajnata Devatattvanam Akarat Yarchanam Kritam. Because that Ajnata is there, now not only that we don't know it, but we really know it, we are humble that we don't know it. For such persons, then they cannot think of, they cannot even, they cannot put their mind on something which is all pervasive kind of a thing. That's only experiential. When that is not there for that person, for such people, then they have created all these other things in the form of various deities they are created. So therefore he says that Ajnata Devatatvanam Akarat Archanam Kritam. Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 12th chapter also he says like that God is something which does not have any form or any particular thing, it's just everywhere. So all these descriptions are there. But then in spite of it, that what happens is we cannot put our heart on that particular type of a God. That's why he says, Kleshodikatarastesham avyakta asakta chetasam. Avyakta is unmanifest, which has no form, which has formless, and then every other thing it is not there. Such a thing, it is called as abhyakta, asakta. That means to say, keeping your heart on that, chetasam. My chetana, my mind, putting on that kind of a thing, abhyakta asakta chetasam, it is very difficult. He says that. Klesha adhikataraha, that means it's extraordinary difficult thing. Adhikataraha klesha, avyakta asakta chetasam. There's another important idea that Krishna brings about in that is that adhikataraha kleshaha is that one thing is that we are not able to conceive that divinity, what is there behind it. Second thing is that we are misled that this form, this idea, and this is something which is supposed to be the way that God is all about. So adhikataraha kleshaha, that means one way you cannot catch it, another way is that you mistake other things for that. As a result of it, what happens, you will not go proceeding further. See, here there are two different kind of views that are there. That somebody settles down with the God image, God this thing, and say that yes, I am related to you. You are the God and I am the servant, and or you are the master, I am the servant. Or you are the God, I am Bhakta, Bhagavanta. So therefore that I follow that. Dvaita I would like to maintain all the time. This duality I would like to maintain all the time. I don't want to listen to anything beyond that. In fact, people become so fanatic that anything to listen beyond that is something like blasphemous. It's not something which is acceptable. That's the way people take it. People live in that. Well, they have to transcend that idea also, saying that even this also is something which is temporary. We need to go beyond that. So that after a long journey, long approach, that they might be able to do it. So therefore, until the time that they're constantly in this particular way, but at least that they have something to hold on to. They are thinking of God, even though that God is something which is beyond their thinking. But then there is some support is there, which will not slip them down. But then those who do not accept that, they feel that yes, God is everything, God is everywhere, He is everything. And therefore, I don't have to really think of any particular image on a temple or on a deity. A lot of people argue that way, saying that when God is there everywhere, God is everything, why do we have to worship in the temple? I'm not interested in going to the temple. And temple and all that is like showing off your spiritual nature or thinking, showing off yourself. This is what for the sake of exhibition we do it. No, it's not for the sake of exhibition, because accepting that you have not yet graduated to the level where you can hold it on to the idea that Aham Brahmasmi, Brahman is there, everything. You cannot hold on to it. Therefore, that you are compromised on the smaller simple things. And that's what is Ajnata Devatatvanam Akararchanam Kritam and Yojanad Anta Shaktistya क्रोशाध्वा परिकल्पते शमबोधापितं पुष्पे देवम् आत्म यदर्चते तत्तु देवार्चनम riddhihi nakararchanam archatam. Know that this is worship of the deity, that shama bodhatabhihi pushpaihi. So what are the in this deva archana that you are doing? Deva idarchate. In this deva atma idarchate. And then in this archana, what we do it? Shama bodhadibihi pushpaihi. What's the kind of flowers that we use? What are the kind of various rituals that we use? He says that in which the divine self is worshipped with the flowers of tranquility. That what is this pushpa? It is shama bodhadibihi. Tranquility is the Shama is one thing, Bodha is another thing, that is awareness, and then Adibihi, connected with that kind of things and the like, and then worship is the form of worship. Now, this worship I am giving for the inner deity that is there is in the form of my peace of mind and also in the form of my degree of awareness that is there. And the third important thing is allied kind of things like, for example, Shama, Dama, Uparati. This is what various Shastras say. All those things are like the way the flowers that I offer. Somebody says something, I offer the flower of forgiveness. Somebody praises me, I offer the flowers of saying that I am humble, I don't have to be elated by this kind of thing. Similarly, somebody complains about that, then I offer the flower, and the flower is of the nature of that, oh God, forgive them, O Lord, they don't know what they're doing. So, Shama Bodhadibihi Pushpaihi, these are the Pushpas, Deva Atma Yadachate. That means deep inside that I establish the divinity, I establish the God in my heart, and thus the temple. And the flowers that I use in this particular temple is the flower of compassion, flower of love, flower of humility. These are the things we use. Just Tattu Devarchanam Vidhi Nakararchanam Archatam. The knowledge and like worship is the form of not worship. Worship is of the form of not really a worship that is there outside, but inside that kind of a feeling that you bring about. That's what is the archana that we do it. Shamabodhadya bhavaihi pushpadhyai archanam smritam. The worship with the flowers and the like laid down the scriptures only in the absence of tranquility, perception. Many times, many people, when they do this particular puja and all those things, they become so caught up in the various details that are there and then accuracy of those details. Yeah, accuracy, all those details, everything is there. Please understand that these are very important to show amount of shraddha that you have in that. You have dedication in doing that kind of thing. But then not to get caught up in the emotional upsurges about that. Oh, this is not provided, that is not provided. Somebody is touching this, somebody is crossing this. You should not be doing this. See, many people that you see in such circumstances, they keep seeing only the negativity. Who is not following what? In fact, the other day somebody was telling me that we have in South India the altar called, whenever we do the puja, what is supposed to be that you are in a very special cleanliness, which is called as muddy. But then here on the day people are walking around and all that, somebody came to me and said that, what is this? People do not have the knowledge of this muddy around here. I was laughing because that the puja was going on with such a great fervor. Whoever was there was simply jubilant of feeling that the divinity that is present. But this man is looking for these things. Swami Vivekananda, that's why he said, the meditation and going inside is the most important thing. And unfortunately, what happened? Your gods are there in the cooking pots, and your worship is there in the form of untouchability. Don't do this, don't do that. And this is the way that you lose your life in all those things. When are you going to become spiritual? He asked when he was giving his talks of Colombo to Almora. So, Shama Bodhadibihi Pushpaihi Deva Atma Yadachyataha Tattu Devarchanam Vidhi Nakararchanam Archatam. Not kind of archana that is there in the normal course of time, and that's a different kind of archana that we need. Shama Bodhadya Bhavehi Pushpadyahi Archanam Smritam. So, all those things are absence of tranquility, perception, the knowledge and the similar virtues are not there. And these are the things which are in the form of the flowers that you lay down. Samvit Sarvakalatita Satta Samanya Rupini Mahasattatmatam Praptam Devashabdena Katyate. So pure intelligence, the consciousness which is beyond all parts of the fragments of what is the nature of the generality of existence, attaining in the nature of vast existence, and the totality of being is described in the word Deva, the deity. So here he gives Mahasatta Atmatam prapta Deva Shabdena Katyate. See, Samvitu Sarvakalatita. So, pure intelligence, Sarvakalatita, it's not bound by any time. Satta Samanya Rupini. The simple pure existence of ours, the pure existence of ours, is same as the Mahasattatmatam Praptya. That means it is the entry or it is the indication of that Mahasatta. That means the Mahasatta. It is that Satta which is responsible for the whole creation, and that's what is Deva Shabdena Kathyate. A very simple explanation for that is the way that we feel Deva comes from Divya. Divya means something which is extraordinary. Like for example, I have a light which is 100 candle bulb, and this what we call it as light. When this 100 candles of light is multiplied by a zillion times, that's what is the sun. This 100 candle bulb might be there now, but then sun is there for eternity, for such a long period of time. This is what we call it as Deva. For us, all this Deva expression is something which is a simple limited perception that I have, and that you multiply a zillion times, and that's what is the expression of Deva. Similarly, what we say is that I have my small little house, and in that house that I have, when I look up from that house, then I see that there is some space in that Akasha that is there. This is what we call it as Grihakasha. That means in the house that there is small little Akasha is there. But when I go to a palace, and then palace, there is so much of space in that Akasha, it's a bigger space. So comparatively, this is a small space, that's a big space. But then you mean to say that this space and that space are different? No. All these spaces belong to the same Akasha that's there, Brihat Akasha that is there. So I can feel the connection between that space within my small little hut, with the space and the infinite world outside, infinite nature outside. Similarly, a palace, a person who is there in the palace can also see that the Akasha, the space that is there in his palace, is also part of that, is also the same as that infinite space that is there outside. When is that possible? When I can destroy my hut and I can also destroy the palace that is there. And where do I destroy? I do not destroy it outside. I destroy those things in my mind. Once I remove from my mind the discrimination between this is palace and this is what is a small little hut, then you see that I don't see any differences between these two. My Akash is infinite, I'm one with the infinity, and that small little space, when it becomes infinite, that's what is called as the God. Deva, deity, God, is something which is beyond these boundaries that we can artificially created, and we created for the sake of the local utility purposes that we have created. So, Deshakala Deshaktinam Ullasaihi Vilasat Valita Kramat Jivo Bhutva Bhavatyashu Buddhi Paschataham Tataha Manastam Samupayata Samsaram Avalambhyate. The pure consciousness, gradually moved by the splendor of the energies of space, time, and life, having become the jiva, individual soul, individualized consciousness, soon becomes the intellect, beyond intellect, and therefore it becomes the sense of I. Then it attains a state of mind. It links to the world existence. Now, this is the model of creation that Indian philosophy has given. Infinite Akasha that is there, infinite space that is there, infinite energy that is there, whatever that you call it as the consciousness that is there, becomes like an individual limited consciousness. This limiting is just creating a boundary. Otherwise, that individual consciousness and the universal consciousness, there is no difference. It is just individuation that has taken place. And from that individuation, further as this is what is called as jiva. That means individual consciousness is supposed to be the jiva. And this jiva, when it gets the idea of I and bhutva bhavatyashuhu buddhihi paschataham tataha buddhi ahankara. All these things are developed later on, and then it attains to the state of mind. Manastvam samupamayata samsaram avalambyate. Mind and the senses. Actually, the way that our scriptures talk about it, the senses are not different from the mind. Mind is supposed to be the central unit around which all the senses are there. Together is one unit, and then this one unit is the way that we connect with the world outside. This one unit is the one which keeps saying that aham, idam, and then this is outside and I am separate. It's only for the sake of temporary transaction purposes, like the way in the dream that we created this kind of a difference and then transaction takes place, the same way this transaction takes place within this. But then some people really enjoy this transaction. They know very well that everything is nothing but the same Brahman, but they accept themselves to see that let me be in this Dvaita feeling so that I can enjoy this whole journey of being in the form of existence. As much as the non-existence is the divinity, for them existence also is equally that extraordinary, wonderful divinity. Like I have the buddhi, I have the intellect, and I have these things, and the mind and all the senses of the mind through which that I interact with the world. The same way that I take that Mahan deity that is there and itself becomes like Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, and then they manage all those things in the world outside, manifest world. Though I am also part of it, but my very great interest is to see that I interact with them. So for them, Dvaita gives them the feeling of joy, feeling of interaction. There is such a great pleasure that is there and trying to flow with the idea of divine qualities of love, compassion, respect, and with all those things I go. This is what is very important. That's why some bhaktas have sung very beautifully saying that I don't want this moksha, I don't want this Brahman, I don't want all those things. Again and again, let me become like a small little creature, like a dog or a cat in Vrindavan, and keep listening to the chanting of Krishna's name all the time, and listen to that and be around that. Give me that kind of an ability to do that. So this is a very beautiful way that he feels connected with the divinity. Otherwise, they cannot feel the connection with the divinity. So this is the way that we interact with the world outside. The puja, the worship, the purpose of puja and all those things to see that how much that we feel that God is not there in the world outside, it's there within us. When we say that He is within us, the deity, the divinity is within us, the same kind of divinity, we can see the world around, everybody is made out of the same divinity, what I am made out of. Let's try to understand that, contemplate on that, and live that kind of a life. Thank you so much. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.